So he says there are now serious negotiations underway to end the war. He says something can be worked out without bombing, and so he says he's put a pause on original plans to restart the bombing campaign on Iran today. Donald Trump explaining he's put off what he called a very major attack, hopefully maybe forever, as he added that America's allies in the Gulf asked him to wait for 2 to 3 days because they feel a deal could be close.
We were getting ready to do a very major attack tomorrow. I was asked by Saudi Arabia, Qatar, UAE, and some others if we could put it off for 2 or 3 days, a short period of time, because they think that they are getting very close to making a deal. And if we can do that where there's no nuclear weapon going into the hands of Iran, I think, and if they're satisfied, we will be probably satisfied also.
Well, our international affairs editor, Kethevane Gorjestani, is with me here on set. I mean, Kethevane, once again, Donald Trump backing down from a threat here, but does that really mean that we're close to a deal?
Well, look, in Donald Trump's post on Truth Social and in his comments following that, there are several elements to what he said that are interesting. One is this idea that there was a scheduled attack that was supposed to happen this Tuesday that he backed away from. There were signs that Donald Trump was considering resuming hostilities. We talked about it yesterday. This national security meeting on Saturday, the call with Benjamin Netanyahu of Israel on Sunday, and the fact that there was supposed to be another national security meeting in the Situation Room today, Tuesday, but there was never any announcement officially or any confirmation that there was indeed an attack that was planned. And the White House had said clearly the opposite, saying that the president had not made any decisions as to a possible attack. The second element I think that is interesting is this idea that there are now serious negotiations going on and that there will be a deal made, that we're close to a deal that will be acceptable to the United States. Yes, diplomacy is still ongoing. The Pakistanis, who are the mediators, have said that there is some mediating happening, but there's no sign that there's any movement on the positions of the Iranians or the Americans. The Iranians have given a new proposal or a new response to the Americans, and now we have confirmation from the Iranian side as to what they have put in that proposal. And when you look at it, not much has changed. They want the lifting of sanctions. They want the release of frozen funds, compensation for war damages, the end of the naval blockade, the end of war on all fronts, including Lebanon, and the withdrawal of U.S. forces. Obviously, on that list, there are some elements that are simply non-starters for Americans. Compensation for war damages, removing all U.S. troops from the region. That's simply not going to happen. Other elements, there has been some movement on. For example, the release of frozen funds. It seems that the Americans might be willing to release about a quarter of those funds, but we don't know exactly. And then, of course, there's the big element, which is the nuclear program. There again, there is some movement on some of the details, like, for example, how long the moratorium on Iran's nuclear program would be. But there again, nothing concrete. And so what you're seeing is that Donald Trump is doing what Donald Trump does, which is threatening and then backing down, saying there's a deal that is very close, and then actually there is no deal. It just shows right now that Donald Trump's strategy of strength, of pressure, of military pressure is not paying the dividends that he thought it would.
We had the words up behind you, just as you were talking at the beginning there, Kethevane. The president in his post claiming he's holding off because other Gulf leaders asked him to. I mean, what kind of role are they playing in this?
Well, look, Donald Trump pointed specifically to the leaders of Qatar, Saudi Arabia, and the United Arab Emirates as the people behind that request of, please, Donald Trump, hold off on resuming hostilities. That's how you read Donald Trump's comments. Obviously, these countries do have a huge stake in the lack of resumption of hostilities and the avoiding escalation in the region, because they are the ones who were first in line of Iranian fire when you had those 6 weeks of active war. But even since the ceasefire, they have been the ones who have gotten the sort of residual attacks, whether it's directly from the Iranians or from Iranian proxies in Iraq. They're the ones who are receiving sending the drones, the missiles, who are seeing their oil facilities on fire. And they are the ones who are suffering also from the closure of the Strait of Hormuz. So they would really not want to see the United States resume hostilities and therefore risk another wave of retaliation from the Iranians. At the same time, though, you have a lot of reports over the past few weeks that have pointed to some of these countries as maybe publicly saying, we want diplomacy, we want a peace agreement, but behind the scenes, including the UAE and Saudi Arabia, secretly attacking Iran or retaliating towards Iran directly themselves, and also B, including Saudi Arabia, asking Donald Trump in private to actually continue the hostilities and get the job done when it comes to Iran. So they're not simply just standing idly by and waiting for Donald Trump to decide what he's going to do. They're trying to put pressure, whether it's publicly or privately, on different elements because they really have their word to say something in what is happening there. The problem is that the priorities and the interests of those Gulf states and of the Americans are not necessarily exactly aligned. The Americans, their focus, their number one priority is Iran's nuclear program. For Gulf states, yes, it might be something that's important, but it's definitely not a priority. The priority is curbing Iran's ballistic program. That's the direct threat for Gulf states that we've seen over the past few weeks, and reopening the Strait of Hormuz, because economically that's where the pain is. And so they don't want to see also the United States simply focus on the nuclear program and forget about everything else.